So hi everybody. Tuesday morning here in Parkville. Pretty exciting stuff over here yesterday. I linked a story in the announcement to lightning hitting our big signature building here on campus. I was on campus. Exciting stuff. Just wanted to reach out and talk to you a little bit about where we are in the course and a few comments about the discussion forums from last weekend. So I thought, just in general, and I don't mean this to be incredibly critical, but one of the forums was quite good. The other one was a little less so, right? So the first forum that actually asked you to look at specific objects, I thought was fantastic, right? So like I really pushed that in my announcement last Friday about how engaging with this idea, there were some really great examples, right? So embassies, the internet, on and on, and COVID, right? On and on and on. The idea that the sort of nature of particular kinds of objects and then their materiality, what they literally are like physically, shapes the nature of international politics. And I thought the idea of the embassy one really got us to that point where actually like the architecture of a building, where it's located, actually contributes to these less tangible things about the sense of connection between two groups of people, right? Between the United States and these places, right? And that these are undertaken in the name of security, and they might have negative effects that we weren't necessarily hoping for. I thought that was really fantastic. So the other forum, though, when it asked you to talk about the sort of invasion of Russia, or the Russian invasion of Ukraine, there was a little bit of good development there, but there was just not enough detail, right? It really needs to think about the actual assembling process. What elements are brought together? How are they associated? What forms of action appear to be more reasonable than others because of that association? What does that mean for the larger politics of an issue? Thinking more systematically about what all of these things in train mean, right? And that's the core insight of assemblage theory, right? The idea here is not just to critique the instrumental use of things, right? Like how to use drones more or less well, how to think about cybersecurity in more or less robust ways, but instead something more like, well, why do we think about risk in our world the way we do? And how is that tied up with the nature of security? How has security been assembled and what politics follow from that when we talk about something like the internet, right? And you can see there how politics and security politics are being reassembled. All of a sudden your smartphone and an app on it are considered security threats, right? Insurance companies and processes like that have become associated with national security because they relate to the ability to keep banks open, right? Even though there might be cyber fraud, these kinds of things, right? To think more carefully about that. I wanted to stress that because the writing assignment you have for this week really is asking you about how something in our world has been assembled. And that was my main takeaway. Think very carefully about, in that train of things, what objects, things, or specific institutions are at play. How do their associations make it so that one course of action looks more advantageous than another? And then what are the politics that follow because of that, right? So thinking through that process. Also, we're at a point in the course where we're going to start actually applying even more directly the material that we've been covering so far this semester, right? So remember that the core insight of this course and all the literature that we cover in it is the idea that of what a state considers threatening, how it assesses that risk, the ways in which it decides to respond to that, and then the politics that follow from those three things are contingent, which is to say that they're not necessarily just, but they look commonsensical, but they're not, right? That there's always going to be different formulation, ways of framing, different tactics or practices that we could use that have become disassociated for some reason. And our job as the analyst is to reintroduce those into the debate, right? So when we talk about terrorism this week, I really wanted to push this idea that the contention here is not necessarily to say that the war on, that terrorism as a threat never really existed or never really was all that severe, right? But there are lots of other ways that we could have looked at that threat that were securitized away or weren't caught up in the discourses that we used or didn't seem functional or effective because of the way we assembled our response, right? The practices, ideas, techniques, institutions that we associated with it, right? So I want you to think through that a little bit more carefully as we go through this kind of material. Also, I wanted to point out that you do have a major paper due at the end of this course. I wanted to really, if you haven't done so already, take some time to think about that, look at that in the course information module, and then book some time to talk to me if you think you need to, okay? So have a great day. Looking forward to hearing from you and reading your papers for this week. If you're wanting to do a revision of the last paper, please make sure you reach out to me. Other than that, I'll see you tomorrow with the lecture material.